They killed him, but we know good and well that if you killed little Karen, Dorothy, Spot, Dick, Jane, and the dog, you're going to
Yeah.
jail.
Yep.
You saw that with the officer out there in Minneapolis. He shot a white
Yep.
woman. He got 12 years.
Yep.
And they
Hmm.
gave her
Hmm.
family $20 million very quickly. When black
Yep.
people are killed, murdered, unarmed, first of all, they drag you out so far that by the time you get the money, you can't spend it.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then they make you fight for the little bit of money that they give you in exchange for the life that has been taken.
Yeah. It's really a sad state of affairs, and I think that's the reality. And I think it's time we face up to the reality and deal with it. By the way, Dr. Davis, Ken Hervin says hello. You
Hello.
know, yeah, yeah. So we put a shout out to Ken, my what a good buddy.
Yes,
And I know he used to be in the force as well, right? Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So he knows what's going on, and so he
yes.
kind of chimed in, and we thank you, Ken, for joining in with us. And he also says, the system can change, but we really have to, get into the details of what is going on. And I think we cannot hide our head in the sand that there is racial discrimination all through the system. Mhm.
Absolutely. And we have to have the political will. So elected officials have to decide that they are going to
Mhm.
reject union money and union
Mhm.
PAC money and union driven money. We have to reject the messages politically that says we want law and order. We see what a law and order candidate does with the occupant at 1600 Black Lives Matter Plaza. He calls himself
Mhm.
law and order, and he unleashed military folks and federal officers on peaceful protesters right out there because he wanted to do a photo op in front of a church holding a Bible. I mean,
Mhm.
I would not have been shocked if a bolt of lightning had come through there because
Yeah. Mhm.
absolutely it was nothing more than a photo op. But and just as you see the Republican Party rolling over for him, for whatever the reason is, whatever the fear factor is, they've rolled over and turned the party over to him. Conversely, the Democratic Party cannot be the same in the name of democracy. The Democratic Party is just as much to blame as the Republican Party because at the end of the day, this has happened under Democratic leadership and Republican leadership. Black people
Mhm.
continue to be marginalized and killed and maimed by law enforcement. And folks, and even some, you and I talked offline, even some of the clergy will go to the community and says, we want to remain calm and we want to be peaceful and we want to allow the investigation to be carried out. Well, the only time this country has ever responded to anything from black, brown, poor people and white people coming together is when the place was on fire, unfortunately. And while I'm not advocating them burning down the country, we recognize that until people get to that point in this country, leadership does not respond, which is
Mhm.
foolhardy to me because it makes more sense to have a conversation before there's destruction and looting and rebellion than to have it afterwards.
Yeah, that's really, I think, important. And I think you touched on it, but I think we're going to go one by one. The elected officials, we have to hold their feet to the fire. I think we have to let them realize that, okay, you can't just go in there and go along with the system as usual. And we need people who are going to shake up the system because at the end of the day, it's about justice and peace for all. That's what
Yeah.
it's about. It's not against, about what we do for this one or that, but it's for all. We want justice and peace. And I think if the elected officials don't jump on the bandwagon, and so therefore who we're sending into these elected places, we have to look at them carefully, see what they're about, make sure they understand, because some of them act like they don't, that they understand what we're dealing with, and they're going to be on our side to help us work it through. What do you think?
Well, some of that is about class struggle, right? If I'm
Yeah.
comfortable and I have health care and I have hundreds of thousands of dollars and I have a pension and I have unlimited resources, then I'm certainly not even thinking about being compassionate to what your concerns and cares are. I'm paying lip
Mhm.
service to your concerns, but I'm not actually concerned about your concerns. Because if we
Mhm.
were, then we're talking about party bosses who would actually pick disruptors, right? It's not accidental who gets the line in a race, whether it's Democrat or Republican. Somebody has picked a candidate that they think that they can control, manipulate, or guide what they're going to say and or do. Often people say to me, Dr. Davis, why won't you run for office? I say, because I like calling people Negroes. I can't be told what to do. I'm unbought, I'm unbossed, I'm unpaid for, and I'm just not a good candidate. Because at the end of the day, I want to turn power over to the people because power belongs to the people.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think a lot of us don't run for office because we know that if we are probably going to be a one term number one because if we
Yeah,
go and shake things up, everybody's going to be all up in arms. But I think what we can do, we can bind together, walk together, talk together, preach together, sing together, and have that same message that
right.
is going to then get across. Because I think this is the important thing, and I think the elected officials. I mean, and somebody online said even the Democratic Party have been complicit for over 50 years. And when you look
Absolutely.
back, it's true. Yeah, and you agree with that?
Oh, I
Yeah,
agree wholeheartedly. So Bill Clinton blew
mhm,
a horn, danced in front of black folks. Black folks were so
yeah,
excited about him shucking and jiving that we decided to call him the first black president. That's nonsense
mhm,
to us. But what happens is under Bill Clinton, we got the Uniform Crime Bill, 1994. More people went to
mhm,
jail as a result of that legislation under a Democratic president than we've had under anyone else. And so we've got to be very clear. We have to have no permanent friends and no permanent enemies. We have to have permanent interests. And so we have to learn to vote our interests, not vote for people simply because they're in one party and or the other. And we have to run our own candidates. At the end of the day,
mhm,
we have to grow our children up. Why aren't our children allowed to run for office at 19, 20, 21, and 22? It can't just be white kids that somehow miraculously, like we got a young candidate now, 24 or 25 years old, who's running for
yeah,
office, has won a primary. Our children are equally smart. Our children can do the job, but we do not create opportunity for our young people to advance in these arenas. So
mhm,
I agree that both parties have been complicit because we've suffered under both parties. And at the end of the day, if we want to be around beyond in this 21st century, we have to stop doing what we've always done. Even in, I'm a Trekkie, so I watch Star Trek, right? Even in the future in Star Trek, there were very few black people, very few,
mhm,
maybe one or
yep,
two. And we've
yep,
got to be bigger numbers than that. We control resources. We have economic dollars. And so one of the things that we have to do, we have to punish people with our dollars, period.
mhm,
We've been having a blackout on Tuesdays across the country. And I said to a few friends that are involved, it's fine to have a blackout, but I need you not just to black out and take your dollars out the economy. I need to put your dollars back into black and brown businesses in the economy. So if you're going to take
mhm.
your money from people that you've given billions of dollars to, who've allowed the police and elected officials and laws to be written that destroy us, then you need to take your dollars out of that economy and create another Black Wall Street, another Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Create more businesses that are focused and centered on our survival and our flourishing. Like, for example, now it's very popular for all the CEOs of these corporations to talk about how they're so annoyed and so angered by what has happened to Mr. Floyd. We don't want you paying lip service to us with these letters from your CEOs. Damn it, put your millions of dollars back into the communities. There was a reinvestment act where the banks were supposed to put 1% of their investments back into the community. What they did was they found safe Negroes and safe Negro organizations to give their money to who were not going to rock the boat. And so they said, see, we gave it over here. But no, that money should be redistributed across the spectrum in our communities.
That's all right, and I think our communities also have to start realizing this and come together. And I think, as you said, if we can, we have so much power that we can unleash, and we just have to direct it in the right areas. And even in the political system, we have to get more involved. You're right, promoting our children, trying to get them to see and understand, and also move our dollars to the right places. And I think
Absolutely.
it's really, really important. And that's why we're going to get on the church in a minute as to what they can do, because I think the church has a lot more power than they realize. And I'm not just talking about the Holy Ghost power either, but the financial power, the other issues that we have as a number and a group of people that I think, what other things you think we can do then? We talked about elected officials a little bit, but what about the churches? What do we think
Well,
we can do?
Well, I think the church needs to expand its ministries, and the ministry needs beyond the four walls, right? The baddest
Mhm,
revolutionary I ever studied was Jesus the Christ, and he did the work
mhm,
amongst the people. I believe in
mhm,
servant leadership. He washed the feet. He fed folks. He multiplied for the multitude. And so if the church isn't doing that kind of work, I think it's great church, mosque, masjid, temple, and so I'm speaking universally about all of them as houses of
yeah,
worship. But at the end of the day, if you're not doing this work for the least of the people, then you're not doing anything, right? That's what I
mhm,
tell that's
mhm,
in the word that Jesus says, if I haven't done it for the least of my people, you haven't done it for me. So why don't we have an economic development ministry in all the churches? Why aren't we building
Mhm.
affordable housing? Why don't we have a job opportunity in all of the churches? Why don't we have the opportunity? We got jail ministries in some of the churches, but why don't we have it
Yeah.
in all of the churches? Why aren't we ensuring that just in New Jersey alone, where we've had inmates during this coronavirus who actually had the virus and were not getting treatment? Why weren't all the ministers at the door saying to the governor, saying to the commissioner of Department of Corrections that let my people go? There's no way in the world we're going to let people die here by themselves with this virus when you know that they cannot socially distance, when they're actually overcrowded to begin with. That's a lot of the work that can be done in the churches.
Yep, I really agree with you, and I think that's one of my passion and desires to see the churches, gather together at the grassroots level and try to make an impact. As a matter of fact, with this the virus here, our church is planning to really only going to meet in the sanctuary probably once a week. We're trying to get out into the community. We're going to bring our ideas out there and try to get revolutionize and get people educated, get people up to speed. We're gonna, be pounding the pavement and talking to everybody so that we can share, what we have, now been enlightened with. And again, that's part of the reason for this program is to let people realize that we have hit the turning point. It's time to turn around and make things move and make things differently. And I think one of my great desires to reach out to all the churches, the house of worship. I'm a part of a couple different groups, and just to try to see, how we can, get this word out. So
Yeah.
any advice or any suggestions, go right ahead.
Yes. Well, so for example, I got a call yesterday from a family in Mercer County, New Jersey, where their son, who's 20, 22 years old, he's doing time. He's in a juvenile facility or an adult facility, but he allegedly spilled water on a dog in the jail. As a result, he got beat up by the guards. He's not been allowed to have phone privileges. A call was made to the family. The family found me and they said, listen, we can't get any reaction to what's going on with our son. And so I had to pick up the phone and call some people to try to get help for this young person. But wouldn't it be great if I could pick up the phone and call a bishop, and bishop says, hey, we got this church that's handling these kinds of duties this month, and we're going to be beating the governor's door down and the Department of Corrections door down until somebody gets in to see this young man, because, okay, so maybe there's a virus and we're not allowing the family to go in, but we're actually going to allow a chaplain to go in who we do trust to go in and make sure that this young person is safe. Why don't we have those kinds of groups to respond? Why don't we have trauma teams in our churches? Why don't we have, again, the economic folk who can say, this is how we're going to do the work? You're right. We're going to spend one Sunday of the month at the church building, and the other 3 Sundays we're going to go out amongst the multitude and we're going to do the work on the ground the way it was done the old-fashioned way. Can't hear you.
We have to see more of that happening. And I think this is where the church needs to be, because as we know well, the church is not the 4 walls, it's the
That's
people,
right. That's
and
right.
so we need to take it to the people. We need to get to the people and share what, the Lord, the peace, we are at peace, and the Lord, we need to share that peace, that love, that joy, in every realm that we have. And I think until that happens, we're going to be having the status quo. Things are going to be the
Yes.
same, not going to change.
Yes.
You know,
Well. For example, we would do work in the streets in Newark, and we'd have Pastor Ali, who had a Christian church, and the Nation of Islam with the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, and we literally would walk the streets with the Christian community as well as the Muslim community, and we were securing the community. There were no issues around pedagogy and who believed in what. We all believe in peace. We all believe in the oneness of God, and we all believe that we were stronger together than we were separated. And that's the kind of work that can be done. Everywhere we've got a church in our community is also a liquor store about 500 feet away. And we know that violence occurs within 500 feet. And if the church is closed 6 days out of the week, only open up on Sunday, then there's some work that needs to be done. Same thing with the schools. We've argued the same thing. If the school is not valued and appreciated in the community, then it gets vandalized and destroyed. But when people see the school is more than just a building where some children go to, but actually serves the community, it is treated very differently by the community.
yes, and I think so. We have to then kind of regroup, reset everything, see where we are, and see what needs to be done as a church, as a community, to try to then, get these points across. And I think, we're going to do the best we can, and we're going to
Yeah.
definitely try to bring people in to bring the ideas to the table so that then we can now move forward. Now, in terms of the current situations and what is going on, again, I know you did a little bit up front, but can you just kind of review again the various things that are going on and just sort of enlighten the rest of our crew? Hmm.
Well, certainly, protests are still going on around the country by young people. Some of us are doing work hands on, some people are on the ground, some of us are behind the scenes doing policy work. I know that I'm coaching a young lady down in Victoria, Texas, that's leading the protests down there and sharing the information. In fact, we sent our book, Black Cops Against Police Brutality, a crisis action plan. While it was published in 2006, it's still relevant for some of the pieces because these are young people learning to organize and learning to build. So I know they're demonstrating. There's also a movement around now to remove some of the racist statues that are up. I know that Newark, New Jersey, recently the mayor had the Christopher Columbus statue taken down in the middle of the night so people didn't get injured trying to rip it down. And that's a debate going on around the country. I know that the occupant at 1600 Black Lives Matter Plaza wants to argue that it's about heritage. And although it is not his heritage, he's arguing that it's about heritage because he's from New York. But at the end of the day, why would we have the vestiges of slavery all over our community, on school buildings, on street corners, everywhere to remind us that we've been enslaved when these statues were put up by the daughters of the Confederate? And so people are fighting to have them removed, as they should. We should be teaching in our community as we would do if we were unmolested culturally. We would get up and have positive affirmations every day. I want to see streets named after heroes and leaders. We want to see streets named after Cujo, Granny Nanny, right? We want to have that kind of leverage in our community where we see our heroes and our sheroes. We want to see a Queen of Four, Yaa Asantewaa, the sister in Ghana who, when they snatched the golden stool, the British, and they had King Prempeh, she went to the men and said, "Are you going to go and free our king?" And the men were afraid. So if you won't free our men, then we women will go fight and free our king and have the return of our stool. I mean, that's the kind of history and legacy that our children have never gotten in school in North America.
No, that's so true. And I think the one point you bring up, and I've been listening to, especially when I hear schools are going to reopen in September. And I know in New Jersey, they have this new curriculum, that is teaching all kinds of things, but is not teaching anything about Black heritage. So I think that's definitely one point where, as local people, we can get into the system and try to make that matter. So that's probably one other point we can talk about. How do we, do some changes to the curriculum that schools are teaching?
So I would argue, and this is a doable right now with all the churches, the
Hmm.
Amistad bill that was put forward, I want to say by Bill Payne in the state legislature around 2001, 2002, was the teaching of the Black experience in America. And it's the law, but it has not been enforced. I know that there's a sister that is in charge of the commission, and that's a doable under education right now. The church can say, you know what, this is going to be our goal this year, that we're going to make sure that every school district, every school across the state is teaching the Black experience in this country as dictated by the law that was passed some 15, 20 years ago. It hasn't been done. And so, therefore, that's an easy one that we can push on. And we say to the governor, you will not get a vote from this community if you're not taking care of these issues. Other groups have their agenda. And so that's one of the items that can be placed in our agenda as a to-do. And so we find the more powerful churches that have the resources, the people, the money to say, this is going to be our fight all year. See, we can all sign off on the letter. We can all commit our congregation to doing that work, but we only need a small group of committed people to make sure that we follow it to the finish line. And then we can use some of our energy for the other issues that we have concerns around, like juvenile justice system, like juvenile justice system reform, as well as correction reform. There's no reason for you to go into a correctional facility and come out a better criminal than when you went in. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I think if we could find something, common that, and you're right, there's a law on the books. So all we need to do is to just make sure we educate people, about the law,
Yes.
which is one of the things that we're trying to do. One of the comments online was that we need to re-educate the re-education of the Negro. So we need to educate, you know,
Whatever that means.
whatever it means. But I think what it means that we need to make everybody aware of what we fought for and the stuff. Think about it. If you fought for something and it's been given, then you just cover it up. You need to work on it now and then bring it to pass. So I think that's one of the things. That's one thing that I am going to definitely look into the Amistad Bill and see what how we can stir up some fervor. And if every church in whatever school district you're in, go in at least to the school board and then start up some to make some noise. And I think we
Absolutely.
can we can start at that level. Yeah, go ahead.
Doc, just make noise, but also target school boards and
Hmm.
target candidates and say, you know
Exactly.
what? If we're
Yeah.
located in this district, we're going to make sure that our people are fully informed. Because of course the church can't go and run candidates, but what can
Yeah.
happen is that there are people in the community and collaborations who can decide which candidates are problematic for your agenda.
Mhm.
Period.
And the church can do education. The church can
Absolutely.
teach their people and let their people know, what's going on, and actually one of the things that I think we're trying to do a lot is let people know, here's what's going on. Here's what you can do, and here's how you do it. And I
Right.
think, if we can do that, and at that level, we can really stir up some information and make sure people know what is going on. And somebody online was saying that the education system has watered down the black experience. Definitely, they've made it non-existent. I mean,
That's
and
right. They start you with
we
slavery.
Yep. And they don't even give you the right history of what has taken place and what has gone on over the world. So I think there's definitely a place for us, and then that's definitely one thing that we should, really be doing. And I really am trying to get this word out so everybody understands the fight that we are in. I mean, and there's no need that we hide our head in the sand and said racism isn't rampant. It's all over the place. It's everywhere,
Yes.
and it's time that we stand up for it.
So
Right?
Dr. Malefi Asante has a history book that I used when I was running the charter school in Newark. His history book was wonderful because it covered all of the history, not just here in America, but the history in Jamaica. We had history there from the continent, and it predated slavery. So that's one book that you can look into. Look
hmm
costly, but an excellent book. And I made sure that all of my teachers taught from that book in the curriculum.
Yeah, so and you can send me that information because we'll put it up and make sure it's available to everybody and such like, because I think these are the things that are important. And actually some of this stuff we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there.
That's right.
We
That's
just have
right.
to bring it up to the forefront, so that everybody can spin the wheel. So we don't have to reinvent it. We just have to bring it up so everybody can partake in what is out there and what is available.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Without a
hmm
doubt.
All right, and again, our buddy Ken says, "LOL." That was a play on the book by Carter G. Woodson.
The
Miss-
Miseducation of the Negro.
Yes, yeah.
That's right.
So,
Carter G.
yeah,
Woodson says in his book, The
yeah,
Miseducation of the Negro, if you control a man's mind, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to
yeah,
tell him to go yonder, go fetch, go hither, or go there. He'll go on his own. And if there is no door for him, he'll cut one especially designed for him.
yep.
Absolutely. I
That's
guess
it.
you know
Yeah,
I read him. So the
yeah.
book I wanted to tell you is The African American People, A Global History by Malefi Asante. That's the book that we use.
Okay. Good, good. Yes, somebody was asking online, so that's good. So everybody out there, I mean, I'm definitely gonna go get it. I hear it's costly, but that's fine. We'll get it for even for the church, and we'll pass it around, make sure everybody are up to speed. Because the thing is that even the Bible tells us that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. So we
Absolutely.
want to share the knowledge, share the information, so that you can then make good and wise decisions and choices. Because the work is going to be easy if we all take part in it, if we
Yes.
all invest some time. Yeah. Go
And
ahead.
they say one hand washes the other, and both
Mm.
hands wash the face.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's what we're looking forward to try to share, so that we can then come together and be really on the forefront. We don't want to just
Yes.
sit back. That
That's
there's enough time for that going on, but we want to move on, and we want to move on. And someone out there truly pointed out that everything we do has to be grounded in leveraging and economic power. We know, yeah, and that's one of the things we're talking about,
We say
as
that's
you kind of
exactly
mentioned
what we say.
earlier. Yeah,
If you're
because
controlling $1 billion, you gotta. If you control billions of dollars, you absolutely have to wield it powerfully, right? We just sent out to a CEO was talking about what he wanted to do in the Black community, and what we said was, no, don't just randomly tell us what you want to do. We want to target what you're doing, and we want to target how you spend your resources, and we want to target the organizations that represent the interests of our community. So you're not randomly just giving money to Black folks who are going to be safe Black people, because that's
hmm
the other problem, right? The safe Black people. You know, when we
yeah,
started in 2009, we started the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition. And I was one of the founding members with Raz Baraka, David Muhammad from the Nation of Islam, and then Vinny and Tretch from Naughty by Nature, the rap group. We were sick and tired of people being killed by drive-bys. It happened at Meeker Avenue, Elizabeth Avenue in Newark. And we decided to protest at the intersections where violence was occurring in our community, because we did not want to normalize that kind of violence. And so for 5 years, we shut down traffic every Wednesday at 6 o'clock for 2 hours on a main thoroughfare near the violence. Now, as the organization grew and our demands were being met, one of the things that I did as one of the founders was step off the front line. Why? Because old people need to get out the way. We need to let young people take the reins and let them
mhm.
lead. And so that's exactly what I'm no longer. I mean, I'm there for consultation if they call, because we should give advice and wisdom. But what we should not be is in the front of every struggle. These movements are for young people to lead, and we need to help them become leaders by letting it be a movement and not a moment.
That's really true, and you're right, because the thing is, if the older ones just keep trying to hog the spotlight and do the thing, after a while, it's gonna die.
Yes,
If unless you have young blood coming in, I mean, think about it. This is a whole families are built up. A family will die off if all the old people just try to take over. So we
yes,
really have to share and we have to enlighten the next generation and help to boost them up. So that's a really really good point. And even and that's one of the things I see even in churches, that sometimes the older folks just kind of, they just place themselves there and they're everything, and
yes.
then they don't give the young people a chance to grow and to expand. But I think that's something that is very important. And especially in this movement, we need to, really, energize, the next generation, energize them because they actually have more energy than we do anyway.
We do.
They can do a
We do.
lot more.
We
Yeah,
do.
good.
Well, Doc, people have asked me, they said, Dr. Davis, I haven't seen you on the front lines. You've been doing it since 1991. They said, why haven't you been on the front lines? And I said, because I've been doing this since 1991. We
91.
are
Yeah, yeah.
29 years. And so
Yeah.
I said 29 years ago, if
Mhm.
25 years from now I'm doing the same thing I was doing 25 years ago, you should kill me because I've wasted my time and yours. At the end of the day, it is now for me to take a different approach. That's why I went on to do the research. That's why we're doing policy positions. That's why we're researching these topics and helping other people get out on the front line and providing the
Mhm.
resources. So what I've said to people is that if you've seen Sergeant Cheryl Dorsey on CNN, that's the sister with the salt and pepper hair from
Mhm.
LAPD, she's a part of our organization. If you've seen Reddick Hudson this week on TV, the brother from Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri Police Department, he's a part of the organization. So what we've now begun to do is to reach across the country and build a narrative that is similar and the same so that everyone that's attaching to this understands these are the things you need to do to make change. And we're on the inside saying that this works.
Yeah, that's very, very important. And I think we need to keep that in mind and making sure that everybody's understanding what is going on. All right. And we did have a comment online that if we could put up again the book, maybe somebody on our team can just put up in the comments the name of the book, the author, so that everybody can see it. I think a few people are checking in again on the book. And while we're doing that, we want to understand, and then also just to back up on the economic issue, somebody also brought up a book by D. Park Gordon, The $30 Billion Negro.
Mm.
Right. So Ken brought that up, so I think that's maybe a resource that we could look at, talking about how we can pool our economic resources. And I think, thinking back to the Black Wall Street, I think we have to now, as a group, try to re-energize that type of system. and I
Absolutely.
think some of our younger people can give us consult, or older people can give us some consult, so that we can, do that. So I think we may want to talk a little bit about that in the future. So I'm gonna have to seek out some people who can have some insight on that, so we can kind of just put it out there, because I think I need to empower our people. I have a need for that, and I don't, and like you, I don't have to be on the front, but I need to get it done.
Yes. So
Go
I would
ahead.
highly recommend Dr. Claude Anderson, who's been having this kind of conversation as long as I've been having it around economics. He's outstanding from the
Mhm.
Midwest. The late Jim Klingman, who was from Cincinnati, Ohio, talked about economic empowerment for Black people all of my life. Then more closer to this New York area, we have Dr. Malcolm Punter, who's a part of my cohort, who recently studied um, 40 businesses in survived in a 40 block radius. And Dr. Punter actually leads a clergy group that has $61 million in holdings in economic development from buildings and housing. So he's local, that we possibly can get to come on, because he's working in New York with a variety of clergy people doing this kind of work. So we don't have to reinvent that wheel. And then finally,
Yeah.
Reverend Dr. Nicole Simpson, who's one of my colleagues here in Piscataway, New Jersey. She's a certified financial planner, but she also does this kind of work. And most of the folks that are her investors that she's working with are millionaires, and they don't look like us, because we don't want to give business to people who look like us. But she absolutely does good work and comes from she comes from New York, from the World Trade Center environment.
Yep. All right. So we're definitely going to seek out some those people you mentioned, because I think when it comes down to it, we need to, re-energize ourselves. I think, a lot of things, what I find is, especially certain, that class system you mentioned, some people have become so comfortable in their
Yes,
situation that they forget where they came from. Or they're
that's right.
comfortable in their situation that they figured they're going to go back to the story in the Bible about Queen Esther. A lot of people don't realize that they may have been brought to this place for such a time as this,
That's right.
to and shape. Go ahead on that point. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there are so many people that do this work, and we can't become what I call comfort corrupt, right? Where you're just so comfortable that it corrupts everything that got you where you are. We have to remember how we got here. My family was brought here from the South because grandma, they thought, was going to get everybody killed because she wouldn't shut her mouth. My grandmother was born 1901, died 1982. She was the youngest of 10 children, and all her aunts and uncles were slaves. But grandma had fight in her. So they forced the family up north from down in Loudoun County, Virginia. But no matter what we did, grandma always reminded us that we should never forget from whence we come. Right there, but for the grace of God go I. God giveth and God taketh away. So we should never get so comfortable with whatever it is we believe that we acquired that we think we did it on our own. We did not do it. God made provisions for us to do it. And the purpose, I believe, at least in my life, the purpose is so that we're able to serve God's people. Yes, we should do some things for ourselves and for our families, but if we're not doing it for humanity, then what is the purpose? I often ask people who have lots of money, how much money is enough? How much do you really need to have value? Because I know people with lots of money who are miserable. And I know people
Yep.
with no cash who are very happy, right? They may be
Yep.
cash poor, but they're good people and they're pleased with their life. And I had a young man who was a student of mine who's a saxophone player. And he told me, he said, DeLacy, one day I just got up and didn't want to be in a house anymore. I didn't want to have a mortgage. I didn't want any of those responsibilities. And I went and started sleeping in the park. And he did it for
Hmm.
years. Now it blew my mind, and I needed to sit and talk. But I've done some work with him because he absolutely was able to just be free. Now he played every day. He had a regular regiment where he played at the different stations in New York and the different parts, and he had a following. He's got a T-shirt. He's got an album. But we got to reimagine how we look at life. And life, just because you have money does not make you successful, as we've seen by Black folks that still get killed and beat by the police. And simply because you don't have a lot of cash doesn't mean that you're a horrible human and your life is valued. Let's remember that Mr. George Floyd was killed over an alleged counterfeit $20 bill.
Yep. I mean, and life is really short, and I think you need to live it to the most of pleasing God. Because I
Yes,
think back, I think, and I'm glad you brought up the point, and I've said to a few people, is for me now, I think part of me wants to just go back to Jamaica, build a hut on the beach, I can give free medical care and people can give me some food. That's it. That's all I would need, really, to be happy, to put it in a basic sense. And that kind of
Yes,
goes to show, and I think, the a lot of people get hung up on money, and it's really money is not a bad thing. We need it. We need it too. It's really when you get so fixated on it, and that then rules your life. That then you don't know care what you do to get it, who you hurt
right,
to get it. Then you forget the basic theme of the Word of God is to love your neighbor as yourself. Because I tell you, if we love one another, we're going to share, we're going to look out for one another, because then we're going to think of the other person even more highly than ourselves. And as so doing, we'll see that we'll have a mighty works. And I want us, as I came to consider whatever race, creed, culture you come from, to consider each person just as good as yourself, and
yes,
really make an effort. What am I going to do today to help humanity? What am I going to do today to help my brother? What am I going to do today to be of service to some of the people that need the service? And I think you hit the point early on. As the people of God, especially, we are servants, and we are here to help one another. And I think if we can get into that mindset, that frame of mind, we're going to see a major difference in this country, in this world, in our families, everywhere. And that's when I think the racism will then disappear. When people love one another. And I know you have talked a little bit about that. Yep. Hmm.
well, yeah, I think that. So I think racism is baked into the institutions in America. She was built on being a racist country. She was built on the backs. Let's remember, on the backs of black people, slaves who were dragged here, raped, pillaged, robbed, mistreated, abused, mutilated, and then forced to build a country which we were never compensated for. So I don't know that we'll get rid of it as much as we'll tame it and tame the people who brought it and created these systems. Certainly, if we do what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing suggests, which is to pull these systems down, to reform them and or rebuild them, then we've got a fighting chance. But we have to be very clear that that was the foundation. Just if we simply look at Jesus the Christ, and I've traveled around the world looking for Madonna Nera, the Black Virgin Mary holding a black baby Jesus, and I've seen her everywhere but in America. So if just
Yeah.
as we look at the Sistine Chapel, if in fact black was as bad as they wanted to be, then he would not have used Michelangelo would not have used his cousin to paint the image of Jesus in the Sistine Chapel. Okay, in Italy, the week before Christmas, they have the celebration of the Madonna, and they bring out a black Virgin Mary holding a black baby Jesus. In Poland, it's Our Lady of Czestochowa. And so I've seen her everywhere that I've been in Europe. It is only in America that we've been, as Dr. John Henry Clark, the late Dr. Clark would say, where it's been whiterized, all right, where they've simply made Jesus white, they've made Mary white, and therefore folks look up to a white Jesus, when in reality, if you simply look at the description, hair like lamb's wool, fiery red eyes, and bronze skin, that's not a white dude. If you look at Moses challenging God and asking him, if you are in fact God, show me your work, and he puts his hand in his bosom and his hand comes out white, he wasn't a white dude. But we've been, Malcolm would say, we've been bamboozled. Okay, we have actually been confused, and because that kind of pedagogy and that kind of theology has been perpetuated in our community, we have not seen the best yet of who we really are as African people.
Yes, and I think that's hit the point that actually I was listening to. I remember who this week, but this was a Caucasian lady who was saying the very same thing you're saying,
Wow.
and she's pointing out that when you look back, she just said, we're all black. She said, she
Right.
said to one person, I'm just a lighter color of black. She was pointing out, because if you go back to the history and look at it, you see that we are all one people, and I
Yes.
think we have to understand that, and I think that's part of the things I think we need to teach and to enlighten. That I think this whiteism that we have here in America will really bring to light, and especially if it's starting with our people, letting
Yes.
them understand, what the truth is, and letting them understand what the history is and the
Yes.
basis of everything. Because until
Yes.
they understand, they can hold people to that kind of level of understanding. And I think that's where I think we have a work to do from our homes, churches, wherever, mosque, whatever. We have to have that responsibility. And I think that's where if we kind of step up to those responsibilities, I think we're going to see some change. Mhm.
We will. I think we
Well,
have to teach the truth. It is important that we teach the truth. And I think that our young people, even though they may not know all the facts, they know that what they're being told isn't factual. And so they rebel against it because they're seeking
Yeah.
the truth. It is that when you see that light bulb go off on young people, because now they go, aha, now that makes more
Hmm.
sense to me than what you've been telling me. That has not happened. How do you go from a people who they are threatening to cut off your limbs and blind you if they catch you reading or writing, to a people who reject reading and writing? And that's again another person. My brother, Principal Kafele, Baruti Kafele, is teaching education all across this country right now, and he's right here from Jersey City, and he was teaching in East Orange, New Jersey. He's doing 400, 500 speaking engagements a year. This is the brilliance in our community, these kinds of scholars that we're not accessing, right? They know that they're brilliant. They know, like, he's in places with predominantly white audiences sometimes, because they know the value of what we bring. We don't appreciate it. We don't value it. And we've got to shift. We can't allow people to make black bad and white good. We have to be clear about what good and evil looks like, regardless of what color it is, right? If this right is right and wrong is wrong, there's not a black right and a white wrong. I mean, the minister used to say, does it make a difference if the poisonous snake that bites you is a black one or a white one? It's still a snake bite and you're going to die. And so at the end of the
Yep.
day, we want good people to be good people, and we want to pursue the scholarship in our community. That's the purpose of us going to school. That's the purpose of a community raising us up so that we can bring it home. And again, we've been detached from that here in America, because my friends and colleagues who are from other countries, especially black folks, African folks, Caribbean folks, would learn and go back home and build. Because we're stuck here and don't see the continent of Africa as home, we don't even learn and come back to our local community and build. In fact, we learn it and then move into a suburb and wonder why they're mistreating, abusing, and killing us, because we can't assimilate fast enough.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point, because and it's almost like a brain drain,
Yeah,
because we kind of attain such things, and then we just move it on to, we're not going back and giving back and helping in our local areas and in our communities, in our countries, even Jamaica. There's quite a bit of a brain drain. People, even those who come on here on just for to teach for a while, whatever, they all of a sudden they just kind of drain them all. And you see the same thing is happening in our local communities as
yeah,
well. And
yeah.
I think we have to be aware of that, and, being enlightening people so they can understand. We need people to go back, and to come back to the grassroots and to see where we can help one another in all the various situations. And I think that's an important point again for the church. I'm a pastor, so I'm always going to bring that up. But as
Absolutely,
another
absolutely.
important place for the church to, to garner all of this, and then to bring it to light, and then to share, with your community, and then, try to take up a stake in the community and be responsible. And I think that's how we're gonna, try to make some change. As you said, things not gonna just dissolve and go away, but we can make a difference. And I think we need
Absolutely,
to understand that. Yeah, yeah. And I know you
absolutely.
agree with that. So you can talk a little bit to the difference that we can make, and how we're getting ready to sum up what other things we can maybe do. Hmm.
Well, we can wield our power. I'll give you something as simple as the mask that we wear. We can make a determination. I'm only going to buy masks from people in my community, period. Whether it's $5 mask, $10 mask, $3 mask, or $20 mask, I'm only going to buy them in my community. So when the masks came out, before they were popular and we knew we were going to be still wearing them, one of my Jamaican daughters, Lawan Henry, who my mother and I helped to raise, she's a designer. She's a young person that has a skill. She started making her masks. I had to make her add $5 more to the price of her mask, but her company was Sincere Design. She sold hundreds of masks, and they were excellent. Then we have Tyrone Chablis, another young man that I went to high school with, who was a designer. He started making some really beautiful one-off masks. We can do all of that. We need to ensure that when we earn a dollar, that before we let it go, it turns over 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 times in our community. So if I'm going to go and buy a mask, I'm buying a mask in our community. If I'm going to go to a store, I'm going to buy in our community. Now, on the converse of that, we also have to make sure that the product that we deliver is worthy of the money. We have to make sure that the stores don't sell us old and outdated food. We need to make sure that the vegetables are fresh vegetables. The fish is fresh. So we've got to have a standard that is raised, a new standard and a new banner that says these are some of the things. But right from the church, we could be doing the mass. right from the church, we could talk about buying wholesale goods collectively as a group and saying these are the things that we will make sure so that no one in this church goes hungry and no one in this community where the church is goes hungry. In Cuba, interestingly, I went there in '01, and in Cuba, the doctor is responsible for the residents in the community where he's assigned. And so he may have 2,000 people in that area. So he's not rewarded for the people that he's giving medication to, but the people that he keeps healthy, right? It's a preventative model as opposed to a reactionary one. So that is a similar kind of thing. Same thing with community policing that should work but does not work because they're using it as a program and not as a philosophy. When I came to the police department, I happened to adopt 4 kids because when I saw the need, I asked my mother, could I bring them home? And we started raising children and adopting children. But it was more of a prevention so that they didn't go out into the world and get caught up in all of the pitfalls that was set up for them. The youngest child was 12 years old. The oldest was 16. My youngest adopted child is now 33. My oldest is 37. That's the work that we can do in the church and all of these institutions.
Mhm. Very, very good. And I think we all have to take responsibility. And I think
Yes,
that's, where I think it's very important, not just to, we don't need lip service, but we need
correct.
service. We need that servanthood, and we need to see that happening. I did want to just mention one person mentioned online, and you may know the person, let's find it, Dr. Jane Elliott. I don't
Oh,
know if you
yes.
know of her. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I guess she teaches some of these main points that that we're touching on. So I think if again we may want to reach out again, but I just want to see. Here's what I want to do. I want to just build up a resource of people who we can always bring into the various communities. We can bring into the churches. We can and just to share because I think if we we can just reach out to the wealth of knowledge and the wealth of history that we have and then use that to build our communities, I think we're going to see some mighty things happening. And,
Yeah.
by the grace of God, we're going to do it. And I think I really want to appreciate all those who are online or those who are watching. And of course, you, Dr. Davis, so we totally appreciate it. And we're going to let you give some closing comments as we get ready to wrap up for today.
Well, I thank God for the opportunity to once again come before the village, to come before our people and your congregation to share. I pray that we've said something that's meaningful and connects with someone. I pray that it rings a bell for someone and they take off with it to serve our community. Our community is in need. Our community is in pain. And I think that this is the kind of work, this is the starting point for the work that needs to be done. And then it
Mhm.
becomes unlimited because we will harness all of the synergy that we have as a collective people. And I thank you for the opportunity, Bishop.
Yes, and again, we appreciate you. We thank all of those. My buddy Ken Irvin was really been putting in some good comments today, and everybody else too. All of Dell Richards. We saw also some stuff, of course, from my daughter Zadia, my wife, Sister Sharika, and all of those who have joined in today and also made some comments.
Turning Point family, what an awesome time we just had. To all our first-time guests, we truly appreciate you for joining our live broadcast. We would like to hear from you, so please send us your comments, questions, or testimonies of how this program has impacted your life. Our email address is info@pflmi.org. Finally, if you feel led at any time to give to this ministry, please visit us at pflmi.org and click on the tab for donations. We're looking forward to meeting with you live on next week's program. Have a blessed and prosperous weekend.